Maya Harrison sat at the back of the xenobiology classroom and stared at the data screen. The lesson today was about planetary classifications and the weakness of certain species in harsh environments. The irony was not lost on her. She was the only human in a classroom of 12 advanced students, and they were studying why humans should not survive. The professor, a tall with dark blue skin and compound eyes, pointed at a chart showing Earth's hazards. Earthquakes, hurricanes, predators, disease, extreme temperatures. The professor spoke in a flat, cold voice. Most species could not handle even one of these problems. Humans had evolved with all of them. Behind Maya whispered to his friends, was the largest in the class. His exoskeleton was thick and from combat training. His voice was loud enough for everyone to hear. "The girl thinks she can compete with us," said. "Her entire species is barely stronger than a child." Vex and Thor laughed. They were companions, part of a group that had made Maya's first 3 months at Academy difficult. They pushed past her in corridors. They stole her work from shared terminals. They made comments about Earth being a failure of a planet. Maya did not turn around. She took notes on the planetary data. She knew what wanted. He wanted her to react. If she did, he would call her aggressive. If she did not, he would call her weak. The class ended at the third solar bell. Students packed their equipment and filed out. Maya moved slowly. She waited until most others had left. Then she gathered her things and headed for the door. She did not make it to the main corridor. Blocked her path. Vex and Thor stood on either side, filling the narrow space between the classroom wall and a bank of lockers. The three of them looked down at her. Was nearly 2 meters tall. His arms were thick as Maya's torso. "We need to talk," said. Maya said nothing. She assessed the space. The corridor was empty. The overhead lights hummed. The security camera that usually covered this hallway was dark. Its lens was covered with a thin film of dust, as if it had not worked for some time. "I am talking to you," said. His voice grew harder. "You disrespected us in class today. You acted like your pathetic planet matters, like humans matter." "I answered the professor's question," Maya said. Her voice was calm and even. "I did not disrespect anyone." "You corrected me," Vex said. His mandibles clicked in anger. "You said the atmosphere reading I cited was wrong. You made me look weak." That was true. Vex had given the wrong data. Maya had corrected him with a reference to the official survey. It was what a good student did. "I stated a fact," Maya said. Stepped closer. The other two moved with him. They formed a wall that blocked her from moving backward. Maya could see the lockers behind them and the empty corridor beyond. There was no one coming. The class schedules were staggered here. This was the gap when most students were eating or in study pods. "We want your research," said flatly. "The adaptation project, you will give it to us." Maya's jaw tightened. She had spent 4 weeks on that project. It was original work. She had gathered data from Earth archives and cross-referenced it with Academy databases. She had created a model showing how human populations survived extinction-level events. It was good work. "No," she said. Sighs grew darker. "You think you have a choice." "I have a choice," Maya said, "and I choose to keep my work." Reached out and grabbed her shoulder. His fingers were long and powerful. She felt the hard points of his claws press into her skin through her uniform. He shoved her backward. Her back slammed into the locker row. The impact was hard enough to drive the air from her lungs. Pain shot through her spine, but she did not cry out. She did not even flinch visibly. His expression shifted. He expected a reaction. He expected fear or submission. Maya had seen this in Earth-nature documentaries. A predator tested prey to see if it would run. If the prey did not run, the predator became confused. "You hurt?" asked, not with concern, with disbelief. Maya pushed herself away from the lockers. She straightened her uniform. She looked directly at space. "I am fine," she said. Vex stepped forward. "Give us the project data. Do it now, or we will make sure you regret every day you spend at this academy." Maya understood the threat. They would make her life difficult. They would turn other students against her. They would ensure she failed classes. They would find ways to make her leave. It would have worked on most humans. Most humans needed community. They needed acceptance. They felt isolation as a deep pain. But Maya was not most humans. She was from Earth. Her family had lived through worse than social rejection. "No," she said again. His hand moved. He grabbed her wrist. His grip was strong enough to crush bone. The confrontation with it happened 3 hours ago. Maya sat in her quarters, a small room on the student residential level of academy, and waited. She knew what would come next. There would be accusations. There would be claims that she had attacked them without reason. They would use their numbers and their position to try to destroy her credibility. But she also knew something that, and Vex did not. They had underestimated her completely. They had assumed that because she was smaller and came from a species they believed to be weak, she would be easy to control. They were wrong. A message alert chimed on her communications pad. The disciplinary committee wanted to see her immediately. She closed her eyes briefly. It had started faster than she expected. They worked quickly when they wanted something. Maya walked through the academy corridors toward the administrative building. Other students watched her pass. Word had already spread. A human had injured her. In the hierarchy of academy, this was an impossible thing. It had not happened before. The office of the disciplinary committee was cold and bright. 3 beings sat behind a long table. The first was an administrator named. The second was a gentle species known for avoiding conflict. The third was a logical species that valued facts above all else. Maya Harrison said, his voice was heavy with anger. You are accused of assaulting 3 students without provocation, has a fractured wrist. Vex has a dislocated shoulder. They claim you attacked them violently and without reason. Maya said nothing. She waited. Well, they asked, what do you say? I defended myself, Maya said. They cornered me in an empty corridor. They threatened me. They demanded I give them my research project. When I refused, they became violent. I responded. You expect us to believe that you, a human, attacked 2 and caused serious injuries? Leaned forward. You are physically inferior. You cannot match their strength. Your claim is impossible. Maya met his eyes. It is not impossible. It happened. The security cameras in that corridor were not functioning, they said. His name was Vex. He was younger than the others, and his expression was neutral. Without evidence, we have only the word of a human against the word of 2 injured. The camera was dark, Maya said. That was not a malfunction. That was intentional. Someone covered the lens. Someone did not want evidence of what happened. His expression hardened. You are suggesting that members of a noble warrior species would sabotage security equipment to attack a human. That is insulting and false. I am suggesting what happened, Maya said. Whether you believe it is your choice. They looked uncomfortable. She did not want this conflict, but she also did not want to be unfair. We will investigate the camera, they said softly, but we will also need to speak with thee about their version of events. They will lie, Maya said flatly. They will say I attacked them first. They will say I was angry about something. They will say whatever benefits them. You speak with certainty, Vex said. He tilted his head slightly, a gesture of thought. You have not seen their statements yet. I do not need to, Maya said. I know because this was a trap. The camera was covered. I was cornered in an empty area. They had 3 fighters against 1. They wanted to either take my research or ensure I could not complete the semester without witnesses to their methods. When I refused, they attacked. I defended myself. Now they are claiming I attacked them. It is a simple formula. Stood up. This interview is over. You are restricted to campus pending our investigation. You will not leave your quarters except for mandatory classes. If you attempt to leave, you will be expelled immediately. Maya stood as well. She did not argue. There was no point. These administrators had already decided what they believed. As she turned to leave, Vex spoke again. The camera malfunction. If it was intentional, there will be records. Someone had to access the system. We will review the logs. It was a small thing, but it was something. One of the 3 might actually investigate. Maya returned to her quarters. She sent a message to her grandfather on Earth. She did not give details. She simply wrote, I am fighting for something. I may need your advice. The response came hours later. Her grandfather had been a fighter in his youth. He had trained her before she left Earth. He had taught her that human strength was not about muscles. It was about will. It was about staying calm when others panicked. It was about using intelligence and leverage and understanding how your opponent thought. His message was short. Remember that the largest predator often has the most blind spots. Move like water, not like stone. Maya understood. She closed her eyes and thought about what would come next. The investigation would either vindicate her or destroy her. They would not stop. His wrist would heal, but his pride would not. He would want revenge, and he would have the resources of his entire family behind him. This was not over. It was just beginning. The next morning, Maya received a summons. The security system logs had been reviewed. Someone had indeed covered the camera, but the person who did it was not identified in the initial review. The technical records showed that someone with high-level access had disabled the camera remotely. Seemed frustrated by this development. Covering a camera to set up an ambush was one thing. Using official system access to do it was another. That was a crime at the academy level. "We will continue investigating," announced. He sounded angry now, not at Maya. By the next day, the story of Maya and the had spread through the entire academy. Every student knew about the human girl who had broken his wrist. The stories were exaggerated. Some said she had attacked all three at once. Some said she had used some kind of earth weapon. Some said she was not fully human but some kind of genetic experiment. The truth was simpler and more damaging. A human had proven that could be hurt. The families began to organize. His father was a high-ranking official in the galactic government. His uncle worked in the academy's technical division. His mother came from one of the oldest families in the known universe. They had power and resources. They used both. On the second day of the investigation, the disciplinary committee called another hearing. This time, there were more members present. There were also representatives from the community. They sat in the back of the hearing room, their eyes fixed on Maya. "We have new information," announced. He was not the same administrator who had spoken to her before. This was a senior member, an older with white stripping along his exoskeleton. His name was, and he was the Academy's chief administrator. "Several witnesses have come forward regarding the incident." Maya felt something shift in the room. The atmosphere became colder. "3 students witnessed the attack," continued. "They were passing through the corridor when they heard sounds of violence. They found and Vex injured. The human, Maya Harrison, was standing over them with an aggressive posture. These witnesses have filed statements claiming the human initiated the violence." 3 new witnesses. That was impossible. The corridor had been empty. Maya had seen it clearly. "Those witnesses are lying," Maya said. She kept her voice level. "I was the only one in that corridor besides Vex and Thor." Thor asked, "Is there a Thor present?" "Thor is my student," the administrator said quietly. "He is with the medical wing. He suffered a panic response to the violence." Maya understood. Thor had not lied. He had simply not told the truth. He had said nothing, and the families had filled the silence with whatever story they needed. "The evidence is now conflicted," said. He sounded almost satisfied. "We have your statement against multiple witnesses. We have a security camera that failed at a convenient time. We have injured. The logical conclusion is that you became violent, possibly due to the stress of being an inferior species in an advanced academy, and attacked them without reason." "That is not logical," a new voice said from the side of the room. "That is assumption based on prejudice, not evidence." Everyone turned. A tall stood up. He was older, probably in his 60s or 70s by human standards. His exoskeleton was faded, and he wore the robes of an academy instructor. His name was Professor, and he taught galactic history. "With respect, Chief Administrator, you are drawing conclusions that are not supported by facts," said. "You are assuming that a human cannot injure because of physical differences, but that assumption is based on incomplete information." His eyes narrowed. "I am aware of the physical facts, Professor." "Are you?" asked. He did not sound rude. He sounded genuinely curious. "Have you studied species? Have you examined their evolutionary history? Have you reviewed the combat records of humans from previous interactions?" "Humans have had no military interactions with other species," said flatly. "That is incorrect," said. He moved to the center of the room. He was older than, and his voice carried authority. 300 years ago, during the early expansion period, humans from Earth had 3 direct conflicts with mercenaries. In each conflict, humans were outnumbered. In each conflict, humans won. Not because they were stronger, because they were smarter about how they fought. "That is ancient history," said, "and it is irrelevant." "It is relevant," said, "because it shows that humans have specific advantages in combat that most species do not understand. Humans are apex predators they evolved hunting larger creatures. They evolved in an environment where injury is constant and death is always possible. This creates unique psychological traits." Turn to look at Maya. A human does not panic when they are hurt. A human does not freeze when they are outnumbered. A human uses whatever advantage they have, no matter how small. A human who is smaller and weaker than their opponent will look for leverage, angle, and psychology. They will use their opponent's strength against them. You are defending her, said coldly. You are allowing bias to cloud your judgment. I am not defending anyone, said. I am providing historical context. If this girl attacked 3 without reason, she would be guilty of assault. But if she was cornered and threatened, and she defended herself using tactical knowledge from her species' evolutionary history, then she is innocent of the charges. Was silent, he looked at the other administrators. The looked uncomfortable, Vex looked thoughtful. We will suspend judgment on this matter, said finally. We are now opening a formal investigation into the camera malfunction and the identities of these new witnesses. Until the investigation is complete, both thee and the human will be suspended from regular classes. It was not fair, but it was not a conviction either. As Maya left the hearing room, spoke to her quietly. Your species is remarkable. I spent my career studying your history, and I still did not fully understand what you were capable of until now. They are going to try again, Maya said. The families, they are not going to stop. No, said, they are not, but now the Academy knows what you are. That knowledge changes the game. Over the next week, the investigation uncovered more facts. The camera had been disabled by a technical access code belonging to Uncle. The 3 additional witnesses could not be located. They had apparently provided their statements and then left the Academy. Maya returned to her regular classes 2 weeks after the hearing. The first day back was strange. Students who had avoided her before now wanted to talk to her. Some wanted to know what it felt like to hurt. Others wanted to know if she could teach them to fight. Most simply wanted to understand how a human from Earth could do what she had done. In her advanced biology class, a student named Sira approached her during the break. Sira was, with soft blue skin and gentle features. She had never spoken to Maya before. I wanted to tell you something, Sira said quietly. What you did was brave. I could not do that. My species does not fight. We believe that violence is never the answer. Sometimes it is the only answer, Maya said. She did not say this cruelly. It was simply true. I do not understand your world, Sira said. I read the information about Earth in our textbooks. It says your planet is very dangerous. It says diseases and predators kill humans constantly. Why would anyone want to live there? Because it is home, Maya said. Because humans adapted to it. Because we learned how to survive in a place where most other species would die. That is incredible to me, Sira said. I have always lived in safety. My family has lived in safety for 10,000 years. I have never had to worry about being hurt by nature. And I think that is why we do not understand you. Over the next week, more students came to talk to Maya. A named asked her detailed questions about human physiology. He wanted to know how humans could survive wounds that would kill other species. He wanted to understand how human brains were wired differently to handle danger. Humans have higher pain tolerance than most species, Maya explained. Not because our pain is less, but because we have learned to separate pain from fear. We can hurt and still function. We can bleed and still think clearly. This is something we had to learn to survive. That is a remarkable adaptation, said. He was taking notes on a data pad. Have your people always had this ability? No, Maya said. We developed it. Humans who panicked when they were wounded did not survive to have children. Humans who could think clearly in dangerous situations did survive. Over time, this created a species that could remain calm under pressure. She told about Earth's predators. She told him about earthquakes that could destroy entire cities in seconds. She told him about diseases that killed in days. She told him about the ice ages when humans had to hunt large animals to survive, animals that could kill them with a single blow. Your species evolved in the hardest environment possible, said. He sounded amazed. And you survived, and it made you strong in ways that are not just physical. My grandfather told me something, Maya said. He said that humans are not the strongest, we are not the fastest, we are not the individually, but humans can survive anything. That is our gift, that is what we are. Word of these conversations spread through the academy. More students wanted to talk to Maya, some were curious, some were skeptical, some wanted to learn from her. Then Professor invited her to his office. The office was filled with books and data screens showing images from Earth and from human history. There were pictures of ancient humans hunting massive creatures. There were images of humans surviving in deserts and frozen wastelands. There were records of human explorers who had crossed oceans in boats made of wood and rope. I have been studying your species for 30 years, said, and I have never fully understood what makes you remarkable until now. It is not your physical abilities, it is something deeper. What do you mean? Maya asked. Look at this, said. He showed her a video of an ancient Earth human community facing a massive predator. The human hunters were far smaller and weaker, but they worked together. They used weapons made from stone and bone. They used intelligence and strategy, and they brought down an animal that could have killed them all. That is beautiful, said. That is the essence of humanity. You take everything you have, no matter how small, and you use it in the way possible. You never surrender. You never accept that something is impossible. You find a way. But that was thousands of years ago, Maya said. That is not who we are now. Are you sure? Asked. You were cornered by three, you had no help, you had no weapons, and you found a way to survive. That is the same as your ancestors hunting the great beasts. You are exactly the same species. Maya thought about this. He was right. She had done what any human would do. She had assessed her situation. She had looked for leverage. She had used her opponent's strength against him. It was instinct. It was something deep in her genetics. Your species is about to become very important in the galaxy, said. Most species see strength as one thing, raw power, the ability to destroy, to dominate, to control through force. But there is another kind of strength, the strength to survive, the strength to adapt, the strength to find solutions when nothing seems possible. He walked to the window. Academy orbited the Andromeda station, and from this height they could see the vast expanse of space. Thousands of ships moved through the docking bays. Millions of beings lived in the stations and cities below. All of those species have advanced technology, said. All of them have great power, but how many of them have truly survived against overwhelming odds? How many of them have learned to thrive in danger? Only Maya said. Exactly, said. And that is why humanity will eventually lead among the stars. Not because you are the strongest now, but because you are the ones who can survive what others cannot. Over the next month, the investigation into the camera malfunction expanded. The Academy discovered that Sin's entire family had been planning this operation. They wanted to get Maya expelled because her presence at the Academy was making other species question the narrative of superiority. That narrative was built on the idea that we're the strongest, the fastest, the most dominant species in known space. A human girl who could fight back threatened that narrative, so they had to eliminate her. But they had failed. By the end of the month, the Academy's leadership announced new policies. They would be establishing an official recognition of species. They would be requiring all students to study the history and capabilities of species that evolved in harsh environments. And they would be offering special protection. The Academy's investigation into the camera malfunction and the conspiracy against Maya expanded far beyond what anyone had expected. What started as a simple case of student conflict became a criminal investigation that reached into the highest levels of the government. Investigators discovered that S's uncle, the technical director, had deliberately disabled the security camera, but he had not acted alone. Evidence showed that S's father, a member of the Galactic Council, had authorized the operation. The three false witnesses had been paid members of a private security firm. The entire setup had cost significant resources and high-level approval. The question became, why? What was so important about removing one student from the Academy that it required all of this? The answer came from an unexpected source. A low-level administrator in the government's science division came forward as a witness. She had been present at a meeting where S's father had expressed his concern about humanity. He said that humans from Earth represented a threat to dominance, the woman. He said that if humans were allowed to integrate into Academy life and to compete with students, it would undermine the narrative that are the superior military species in known space. He said that humanity had to be discouraged, contained, or eliminated as a potential competitor. The testimony shocked the Academy leadership. This was not about S's personal grudge. This was about preserving the claim to superiority. The investigation then turned to Earth's history. The Academy commissioned a full historical review of human interactions with other species. What they found was remarkable. Humans had indeed had military conflicts with other species 300 years ago. These conflicts had been brief, and they had been won by humans despite the humans being outnumbered, and in many cases. The records showed that humans had used unconventional tactics, had adapted quickly to new situations, and had refused to surrender even when defeat seemed certain. One particular battle stood out. A human colony on a frontier planet had been surrounded by mercenaries. The humans were outnumbered 5-1. They had no heavy weapons. They had only small arms and basic technology. But they had studied their environment. They had understood the psychology. They had used the terrain to their advantage. The humans won. They drove off and lost only 3 fighters while killing nearly 100 of the enemy. This is a pattern, Professor to the Academy's Leadership Council. Humans do not win through superior force. They win through intelligence, adaptation, and the willingness to accept casualties to achieve their goals. They are the most dangerous species I have ever studied. Dangerous how? The council leader asked. Because they can survive anything, said. Show me another species that can fight a prolonged conflict with limited resources. Show me another species that can operate in hostile environments for extended periods. Show me another species that can maintain morale and combat effectiveness when they are hungry, wounded, and outnumbered. Humans can do all of these things. This makes them not weak, but exceptionally strong. The investigation uncovered another important fact. The government had been actively working to keep humans isolated and poorly informed about galactic affairs. Trade with Earth had been restricted. Human researchers had been accessed to major scientific projects. Humans had been kept out of the important diplomatic meetings. It was a systematic effort to ensure that humanity would remain backward and irrelevant. This is discrimination, the council member said. This is a violation of everything we believe about equal treatment of all species. This is survival, his father said when he was brought before the council for questioning. He did not deny anything. He seemed almost proud. If humans are allowed to develop fully, they will eventually challenge authority. We are simply protecting our position in the galactic hierarchy. By committing crimes against a student, the council member asked. By taking necessary measures, his father said coldly. Humans must be controlled. This girl is the first of many. If we do not stop this now, Earth will become a rival power, and its people will be fighters. We will be forced into conflict with a species that can match us militarily. The council was shocked by this admission. A high-ranking official was openly advocating for the suppression of an entire species based on predicted future conflict. Your actions are indefensible, the council leader said. You will be removed from your position, you will face criminal charges, and the government will issue an official apology to the Academy and to the human student. The apology came 3 days later. It was formal and meaningless. The damage had been done. But now the Academy knew the truth, the feared humanity. Maya learned about the investigation's findings through official announcements. She sat in her quarters and read the reports. She learned that her own government had been deliberately kept ignorant of galactic affairs. She learned that her entire species had been systematically isolated and discriminated against. She also learned that this was changing. The revelation of the conspiracy had shocked the galactic community. If one major power was willing to commit crimes to suppress another species, what else were they hiding? What other conspiracies existed? The Galactic Council passed new regulations. All species were to be given equal access to Academy programs. All species were to be included in scientific and diplomatic initiatives. All species would receive military protection and trade support without discrimination. It was a small change on paper, but in practice, it was enormous. For the first time in recorded history, humanity had official recognition as a species worthy of respect and equal treatment. An official representative from Earth arrived at the Academy to meet with Maya. She was a woman named Dr. Lisa Park, a diplomat and scientist. She had been chosen to represent Earth's government to the galactic community. You have changed everything, Dr. Park told Maya. Your courage, your refusal to be intimidated has forced the galactic community to acknowledge that humanity is a real power, not a minor species, not a backward people, a real power. I just defended myself, Maya said. 6 months after the confrontation Maya stood in the center of Academy's main atrium. The space was enormous and beautiful. It reached upward toward transparent walls that showed the stars beyond the Academy. Hundreds of students from dozens of species gathered there for the annual achievement ceremony. Maya wore the formal gray uniform of an Academy ambassador. Around her neck hung a medal that represented her role as the first official human liaison to the galactic community. She had earned the medal not through violence or power, but through courage and truth. The ceremony was beginning. The Academy's highest officials stood on a raised platform. The crowd fell silent as the main administrator stepped forward. "Today we recognize students who have achieved extraordinary things this year," the administrator said. "Students who have shown exceptional character, intelligence, and bravery. The first award goes to Maya Harrison, human student from Earth." The crowd applauded. Maya walked toward the platform. She saw faces she recognized. Sierra, the student, clapped with gentle enthusiasm. The nodded with satisfaction. Professor stood in the back of the room with pride clear in his expression. But she also saw he sat with other students. His wrist was fully healed. His eyes were cold. He did not applaud. But he was there, forced to watch humanity be honored. "Maya Harrison," the administrator said, "has shown the qualities that make a great member of this galactic community. She has faced prejudice with dignity. She has faced danger with courage. She has refused to be diminished by those who sought to destroy her. For these reasons, we honor her." As Maya received the medal, messages began arriving on her communication device. The first was from her family on Earth. Her parents were crying with pride. Her grandfather had sent a single message: "You made me proud. You showed them what humans are." The second message was from Dr. Lisa Park, the human ambassador. It contained news that the first human military personnel had been assigned to the Galactic Defense Force. The first human scientists had been accepted into the advanced research programs. The first human trading company had been granted license to operate across multiple star systems. Humanity was no longer isolated. Humanity was no longer backward. Humanity was taking its place among the stars. After the ceremony, a group of students approached Maya. They were from species she had never seen before. One was from a species called another was from a harsh environment planet in the Andromeda galaxy. They had heard about what had happened. They had heard about a girl who had refused to be victimized. "You gave us courage," they said. Her name was Vex. Her species was known for their strength and ferocity in combat. "You showed the galaxy that we are not weak, that we are not inferior, that we can stand with any other species." "I did what I had to do," Maya said. "I just survived." "That is exactly what it does," Vex said. "That is why we must stand together. The peaceful species of the galaxy do not understand us. They do not understand what it means to grow up in a world where every day could be your last, but we understand each other." They invited Maya to join a group that was being formed. It was called the Alliance. It would include all species that came from harsh, dangerous planets. They would support each other. They would share knowledge about survival and combat. They would make sure that no galactic power would ever try to suppress them again. "I will join," Maya said. She understood the importance of unity. Humans had survived on Earth by working together. They would survive in the galaxy the same way. Over the next months, the Alliance grew. Species from 17 different harsh environment worlds joined. They shared military knowledge. They shared scientific discoveries. They formed trade agreements that would strengthen all of them. The galactic powers that had once dismissed them now had to negotiate with them. The peaceful species that had once ignored them now sought their counsel. Humanity, for thousands of years isolated and alone, had found its place in a larger community. But it was not a place of dominance or conquest. It was a place of partnership. Humans learned from the about peace and cooperation. Humans learned from the about logic and strategy. Humans learned from the about advanced technology, though they were now cautious about this knowledge transfer. Maya became the leader of the Alliance's educational initiatives. She traveled between worlds. She met with species that she had never heard of before. She told them about Earth, about humans, about the qualities that made humans valuable to the galactic community. She spoke at a major council meeting about human philosophy. She talked about the concept of honor and the importance of protecting the weak. She talked about human creativity and the ability to find solutions in impossible situations. 1 year after the confrontation with the intergalactic scientific competition took place. This was the event that and his friends had tried to steal Maya's research to enter. Maya had completed her project on her own. The research was original, brilliant, and showed deep understanding of how species from harsh environments adapted to different planetary conditions. Maya's project won first place. She stood on the podium and held the trophy while scientists from hundreds of species applauded. The delegation was present. They clapped politely but without enthusiasm. They had learned something important. that humans, despite their relative weakness in physical strength, were valuable to the galactic community. After the ceremony, Maya went to Academy's highest observation point. It was a place where students came to think and to look out at the universe. She stood alone, looking down at the stars. A message came from her grandfather on Earth. He had watched the competition broadcast from his home in the North American continent. His message was simple but powerful. You have taken humanity from the darkness into the light. You have shown the galaxy what we are. But remember this, we did not become this because we were gifted or special. We became this because we refused to surrender. We refused to accept defeat. We refused to believe that something was impossible. That is what makes us human. Keep that fire alive. Maya held the message close. She understood now that everything that had happened since that day in the corridor was not about her alone. It was about humanity's place in the universe. It was about proving that a species could be small, could be young, could be different, and still deserve respect. They had tried to contain humanity, but they had failed. In trying to suppress one human girl, they had awakened a species. They had shown humanity that it had strength that even it did not fully understand. Now, standing at the observation point, looking out at the infinite stars, Maya made a decision. She would not spend her life seeking revenge against the... She would not waste her energy on hatred or anger. Instead, she would build something. She would work to create a galactic community where all species, no matter how young or different, would have the opportunity to grow and succeed. That was the human way. That was what her species had learned over thousands of years of struggling to survive on a... That was the lesson she would teach the galaxy. In the distance, a ship was preparing to launch. It was Earth's first official vessel in the galactic fleet. It was painted with symbols representing both humanity and the new alliance of species. In a few days, Maya would board that ship. She would begin her new role as humanity's ambassador to the greater galaxy. The sun reflected off Andromeda Station's outer hull. The stars beyond it burned with distant light. And Maya Harrison, a simple human girl from that the galaxy had once dismissed, stood ready to show the universe what humans could truly become. She was not the strongest, she was not the fastest, she was not the oldest or most advanced, but she was human, and that meant she would survive, she would adapt, she would find a way. And she would never, ever surrender. Exactly, Dr. Park said. You did what humans do, you survived, you adapted, you refused to surrender, and in doing that you showed everyone what humanity truly is. Dr. Park had brought official documents appointing Maya as a junior ambassador to the Academy. It was an honor usually reserved for much older students. But the Galactic Council had determined that Maya deserved recognition for what she had accomplished. Your species will be involved in the next major scientific expedition, Dr. Park said. We will have a seat in the diplomatic councils. We will have access to advanced technology and information. Humanity is no longer alone in the galaxy. We are now part of something larger. Maya looked out the window at the stars beyond Andromeda Station. Somewhere out there, Earth orbited in the darkness. Her family was waiting for news. Her grandfather was waiting to hear how the story had ended. But she knew that this was not the end. It was the beginning. The galaxy now knew that humanity could fight. They now knew that humans were people who could survive anything, and that knowledge would change everything. And status to any students at the Academy. It was a small victory, but it was a victory that came because one human girl had refused to back down. It was becoming clear that this was not a simple student conflict. This was something larger. This was a family using their power to eliminate a problem. And the problem was not that Maya had fought back. The problem was that a human had proven it was possible to fight back. By the end of the week, the full disciplinary committee met again. This time, the decision was different. They were suspended for conspiracy to commit assault and for tampering with Academy security systems. Maya was cleared of all charges. But as she left the office, she understood something important. Winning the hearing was not the end of this conflict. It was the beginning. The families now had a reputation to restore, and they would not rest until they had taken what they wanted. At his own kind, you are cleared of the immediate assault charges. However, you remain on campus restriction until we determine who disabled the camera. Maya nodded. It was not a full victory, but it was a step. Someone on the disciplinary committee, probably Vex, had pushed for this fairness. As she left the office, she saw in the hallway, his wrist was wrapped in a medical brace. His eyes were dark with rage. He looked at her with an expression that made clear what he was thinking. This was not finished. Maya looked back at him. She did not look away. She did not show fear or hesitation. The message was clear. Neither of them would back down. And somewhere in the academy, someone was covering their tracks. Someone had planned this confrontation carefully. Someone wanted Maya Harrison removed from academy badly enough to commit a crime. The question was why. Maya did not pull away. Instead, she did something she had learned in childhood from her grandfather. She turned into the grab. She moved her weight to her back leg. She used the momentum of the turn and the leverage of her entire body, not just her arm, expected resistance. He did not expect a human to move in a way that used his own strength against him. Vex lurched forward to help, but Thor suddenly stopped. His antennae drooped. He was looking at, and something in his expression had changed. Was on one knee, his wrist was bent at an angle that no wrist should bend. Pain showed in his compound eyes. "You broke it," Vex said. He sounded shocked. "No," Maya said. Her voice was cold now. "I just convinced him to let go." She pulled her hand free from his loosened grip. She took a step forward, moving around him. Thor did not try to stop her. He looked at his injured friend and then at Maya, and something in his insect mind was calculating new probabilities. Maya walked toward the main corridor. Behind her, she heard Vex ask if was injured. She heard his answer, a hiss of pain and rage. She did not run. She did not look back. She walked calmly, like a human from a should walk. By the time she reached the main corridor, her hands had stopped shaking. She had one thought in her mind. The security camera had been dark. This was not an accident. This was a setup. And now someone would pay for it.